All right. Well, I think the last one I can think of is them trying to change you all the time.
Ooh, that's a biggie. Yeah, you either get along and that's the kind of person for you or not. But don't try to make them into somebody that you want them to be, and they clearly are not that.
There's a lot of fix-up projects that I've seen go on, both man and women. Them trying to
Yes,
be the savior,
both.
or the
Yeah,
woman trying to be, I'll make him a better man,
yeah.
whatever
It's
in
common
their
that
head.
common wisdom that women do this to men, but men do it too to women, and that's I don't know why they don't call them on it, but it does happen, and it's doomed to failure. I would say that is a significant red flag. And it's done in subtle ways over time at first or suggestion. And then as people become more and more attached to each other and there's emotional bonds and leverage, of some sort for whatever reason, they get more dominating about it. But it's always doomed to failure. Just let them be who they are. Now, I'm not saying like, hey, I thought we were going to do this, and you get a little irritated and you mention it and you're trying to change a particular behavior for a particular reason. That's one thing. But it's
Yeah,
another thing to try to change them into somebody who they're not.
yeah. Oh, you like that music? We don't listen to that music anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
oh,
We
okay.
we is that
Oh,
the
we don't eat
royal
those foods
we?
anymore. We're vegan now. That type of
What?
things.
Yeah, yeah. Those kind of things. You,
Oh,
you
I'm
need to.
vegetarian because my girlfriend's vegetarian. Okay, guy.
Yeah, and I'll say this: if you're a woman and you have a guy who's willing to switch his diet just for you, that should be a red flag for you too. That person has no self direction.
Yeah,
What kind
he's
of
willing to bend very far back just to get some,
Yeah,
some. You know what I'm saying?
will not, and not just that, you ultimately will not be happy with that person, probably. Of
Yeah,
course, there's always exceptions, and there might be a reason for that behavior that we're unaware of. But if that person's willing, just, oh yeah, I like that too, and they don't even really know what it's about, just to, yeah, one, they're lying to you, just to make you feel good or try to get in your good graces, or they have no sense of personhood. They have no sense of self
yeah.
at all, and they're just willing to do whatever. And they're going to have a hard time in life, which just means as a long-term partner, you're going to have a hard time in life too. You're going to have to deal with those kind of issues. I would say that's a good red flag for sure.
What did you want to talk about? Did you discuss prior with your relationship? Because I did with mine. She shared a lot with what you have actually, so I'm not have too much other.
Oh yeah, hers was jobs. That was a big one. If you can't hold a job, then it's always somebody else's fault. So that was more of a twofer. Yeah, my fiance said that, and that goes with responsibility to me, and I gave that as an example. But that was a big one for her, and she saw that. She goes, that one kind of spills over into other decision making processes and how their personality is and what they think about and how they view the world. If they are a man that can't hold a job, and especially if the reason they can't hold a job is everybody else's fault, not like everybody has a job where sometimes it just turns bad and you can't stand it. But if it happened at some point and they were okay with it for 10 years or so, and they just like it went to hell and they couldn't stand it anymore, that's entirely different from somebody who can't hold a job for
For
six
more than,
months
yeah,
you know, can't hold a job for 6 months, or a year is like a major milestone and they're a grown adult. And it's like the 10th job they've had in a 5 year period, you know, what's going on?
yeah.
That was a big one for her for a good reason.
And not a type of job. That's not one. If they're
Doesn't
just
matter what the type of job is. Doesn't
gotcha.
matter. Yeah.
That's nice of her.
Yeah.
So,
Well, the reason why is there's always a reason. That's to say, when you have that, it happened that many times for that long, and it's always the workplace's fault, it does not matter. And
mhm,
she's, after thinking about it, she's absolutely right. It doesn't matter. At some point, one of them, all you had to do was stay at one of them. 10 jobs, 5 years. And that's just an example. I mean, that's not a specific thing. It could have been 5 jobs in 2 years, and
I'll say one that Lauren talked about, and you kind of touched on it, but not really. You pretty much hit every single one she said, which I found quite amusing. And one you didn't quite get was if they talk about their ex all the time, or they ask about your exes all the time. They're very interested about your exes, and they talk about theirs all the time.
Right. Well, they're trying to evaluate how you respond to it.
They
So
compare you to their exes all the time.
yeah, yeah. And I'm okay with that up to a point because that's how they can relate to you and see if you're somebody who they think they could be with. But if you've gotten past this and they keep bringing it up constantly, I would have to agree that's a red flag.
So I'll tell you why I think she manifests this from me because I did this terribly with her in the beginning when I would compare her to other
Well,
people.
so that's a
That
personal thing
was
that spilled
she
out.
manifested this from most likely from me. She might have had it
Right.
beforehand, and I just kept nitpicking at it because I kept bringing it back to that. So that
Yeah,
probably
you got to stop that. And you
oh yeah,
probably,
I stopped that a long time ago. But in the beginning,
yeah, right. It was just, that's because it was fresh in your mind. That's what I was talking about earlier. Somebody freshly divorced, freshly out of a long term relationship. I say divorce, but it could be any long term relationship. That's going to be burning in their mind. It's unlikely that you would be the long term prospect just because she hung with you to get over your stuff.
yeah.
So that's, and you stayed with her too. That's kind of unusual. That doesn't usually happen,
Well,
although it
mine
could.
wasn't very recent. I just had a little bit of I don't know lack of understanding on her part, empathy to for her to hear me, the other person, talking about somebody else the entire time. She had to bring it up to me multiple times for
Right.
me to finally get it in
Stop
my
it.
head. Yeah.
Right. And that's understandable. That's what I'm saying. It's tough. Somebody fresh out of a long term relationship, you're going to be dealing with a ton of issues. And typically, you're not going to. So you're just going to go. It's not going to be a long term prospect in general. But you went through it. So, like I said, there's always exceptions.
hmm Yeah. It was one of the few red flags, I guess, enough for her to keep, not enough for her to go away.
Right. And another one mentioned that you sort of already touched upon it, trying to change the other person. But another one is always having to tell or dominate another person. Like you're always going to tell them what to do and things like that. And I know men are accused of doing that to women, but that's pretty much changing another person.
Mansplaining.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Well, I don't know why women aren't called on it too, because the
Yeah, they
woman's
do it.
splaining is ridiculous. I guess
They do
it's
that too.
oh, horribly. But it's okay if they do it. They don't even have a thing. It's like, well, they have to explain it to you because you're just a man.
It's
That is
gonna swing the other
constant.
way eventually, and
Yeah,
then people are
but
gonna
that's
say,
why I mentioned it doesn't matter what sex or gender you are. If it, these things are universal. We're talking about.
hmm
Same goes if you're a woman and you know you need to work, but you won't hold a job because you know you can kind of make it on his income, but you really won't have enough money because the job market
or
is saturated with people. That's a problem.
even
You're not
less than that,
responsible.
you
Yeah.
you have enough money if you didn't buy things all the time, but you wanna go
Yes.
use his money to buy things all the time, which puts y'all in financial
Right.
compromise. That's a
Right.
problem,
Right. Yeah.
and
And
you
that
won't work for your money for the things you
right.
want.
Well, one of my flags was after the love bombing. Before we mentioned what our partners we were talking about, like my fiance and your girlfriend, is if she starts demanding you pay for her private things and you're still in stage one, like the love bombing is happening, and now she wants you to pick up the car note. Yeah,
That's weird.
that is
That's
not
a
weird
huge flag.
for not guys my age because they
Really.
think all of us have a lot of money, certainly more than them if you're dating a younger woman. And I'm going to tell you, don't do it.
Yeah.
I'm not saying
Especially
it's a
don't put it in
black
your
flag
name.
event because she may be testing you to see how pliable you are, but it's something you certainly shouldn't forget. And that
See,
goes,
I'm so less. I have such a shorter slack of rope for that.
yeah,
If I find out that's a test, you're testing me, I'm done.
yeah, oh yeah, and
I'm
that
failing on purpose.
right,
I'm out.
and these are things that are accepted commonly, and we'll call it as it is, shit testing.
Mhm.
If I fail them on purpose, if you shit test me, I will fail it spectacularly right there on purpose. I will do the worst thing possible for that.
I won't do the worst thing
Oh
possible,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I'll definitely be a little petty and then immediately leave you.
No, I'm not going to be a little petty. I'm going to be a lot petty, and and I'm going to see what you do about it. And I'm going to stand there and wait for you to respond. And the reason why is you were rude and disrespectful to me, and you're trying to play games with me. So, all right, And I'm going to have some entertainment out of it if you're going to do that. And I'm not going to be mad about it, but I'm going to fail it. And we're going to see how it's a red flag for me. It is not a deal breaker. It is not a date ender,
Wow. It's
but
not a
yeah,
so
but
you're essentially making it a black flag for her
no, it's not a black flag.
because you're gonna be you're gonna extremely be petty about it though. That's
No, I'm
to
not
me.
going to be. Well,
You
you
just
could say, yeah, I'm gonna blow it up. It's going to be a fail. It's going to be a spectacular fail, and and I'm going to wait and see how you respond to it because you brought this up. It didn't need to be here, but you created this. You manipulated events and tried to manipulate me. I'm a grown man. I've been a grown man for a very long time. This is not necessary.
just walk away. It's not worth it.
No, I'm not walking away. We're
It's not
dating.
worth
So
it.
let's see how you respond to it. You want to see how I respond to it? Here you are. And let's see how this goes.
I don't even want to be with somebody like that, so I just dip.
Oh, like I said, especially older women, women around my age, a little bit younger, they do this because they've been taught you need to do this to find out what kind of guy it is. It is a thing for them. It is tough for them to break those type
You'll
of
find out
ways.
real quick what type of guy I am.
Yeah, yeah, and you will
I'm
with me
out.
too. And here's the thing: after I fail their test spectacularly, I will tell them what they did, why I did it, and we'll see how this goes. It could be a black flag event. It could be, but it doesn't have to be. It depends on how they handle it. Because
You're in
yeah,
many ways you're more helpful than I am because I'm not even gonna be the helpful lesson for them because you're
yeah.
essentially providing them a chance to have a lesson. And I'm not
Well,
even
I'm
that.
going to see. I'm really going to see what kind of person they really are, because this may be just something that they do because they think they're supposed to. They think that this is what you do to find out what kind of person you're dating, and I'm going to tell them this is not appropriate, or this is after I fail spectacularly, and it could be bad. But we're going to see how this goes.
I'm not it the most they'll get is he ghosted me. That's all they're gonna learn from that situation.
Yeah, and that's fair too. I know people will disagree, but again, it's rude and disrespectful to play
when
these kind of games
yeah, when you're
and be
mind
petty.
games with me,
Yeah, it
it,
is rude and disrespectful. And I'll tell you one of these. We were wanted to go out and eat. We were just decided to go to a movie, and we were both hungry and say, "Hey, let's go out and eat somewhere." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that sounds good." I didn't even eat supper, so I could certainly grab something. And she goes, "Where do you want to go?" I'm like, this is that conversation that every dating couple has. I don't care. And you know me, I will eat anything just about, except for a certain specific kind of foods. I will eat 99.9% of everything that's edible, except very specific things. So when I say I don't care,
catfish.
and I'll even eat that if it's thin and properly done, but not much of it. But and they're like, they roll their eyes, and it's something to laugh about. You talk about it, but I really don't care. So I said that I was like, I will eat anything. So don't rely on me, because I'll take us to the closest restaurant and be happy. So don't ask me.
Right.
And I said exactly that. Do not ask me, because I will eat whatever you put in front of me.
Whatever I will literally look whatever gives me the most food for the price and whatever's closest in that
Whatever
group.
I said, whatever's closest, we're going to it. So it could be fast food or a 4-star restaurant, anywhere and anywhere in between. I really do not care. And she's like, okay. And I saw her eyes light, and then I saw her pause for a minute and go, let's go to this place. And it was a very expensive restaurant. And I didn't have a tie on, and ties were not required, but suggested. But you did have to have a jacket. And I happen to have a jacket on like this, blazer, but really more like business casual with blazer, typical older person kind of date thing. And I'm thinking, wow, and this was like date number 3. And this was $200 a person kind of place.
That's a weird move to play.
She, that wasn't weird. That was a shit test.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. That's a move. She played a move.
Yes. And I'm
And I
like,
understand that. Yeah.
and I looked at her, and I didn't even pause. I'm like, that place does have good food. Let's go there. But so she's like, oh, great. All smiles. We're going. So I drive over there, and it was on the other side of town, so it took a while
So
to get
all of
there.
the under the tonal understanding that most, but that you're gonna pay, but you're not gonna pay is
Oh
what
no,
this
no,
is
no, no,
leading
no.
to.
Oh yes, yes, yes. So
Uh,
that's exactly what happened. And she was extraordinarily angry. And my I I I'm like, I thought you were paying. You suggest I thought when you want to go to the place, you're the one paying. I did that. It's like, I didn't even bring my wallet because I got the tickets online. She had to pay. She had to pay. I told you when I fail spectacularly. And
I didn't even bring my wallet.
but you were driving. Yeah, I totally forgot. It's in my other pants. Totally forgot it. And here, and here's the thing. I didn't pay her back either. I refused to do it. I didn't offer to pay her back. I didn't do any of that. And I know people are going to be outraged. I don't care. She did it. She picked the place. It was on her. She did it gaming or trying to pull something or shit testing or however you want to call it, manipulate whatever she was doing to see my reaction. She got it.
Yeah, depending on how that conversation went, but not really. It's to the understanding that if you're okay with having the meal there, then you'd be okay with paying for it. Why not? Right?
Of course. And that was exactly my response when we were having this conversation at the end of dinner.
Hmm. Yeah. Me wouldn't even go there with it. I, but to also, I would have failed that in the beginning because I'd have seen what it was and just been like, we're not
Oh,
going
it
there.
was so obvious what it was. But again, we're older and both working. And I was waiting for her to bring it up because it was an example. Like, wow, I would not normally go to a place like that except for a very special occasion. And that's typically what that place is. Or you're earning mid six figures, four or $500,000 a year. That's a place you go to frequently
Hmm.
because it's a very expensive place. It's not some place your middle class person goes
One
to.
night for $250.
Yeah, it's not some place you go to once a week, once a month, or even once a year, unless you're celebrating your anniversary type thing. But it was something she just popped it off, and I agreed. Like, I heard that's great food. Yeah, and I was waiting for her to bring up how this is going to go down, and she remained mum. And we didn't talk about it. We talked about everything else on the way, and she was all excited till the bill came.
And I suppose there's a bit of weirdness with relationships. I find probably a lot of people are going to have red flags differently than ours because I know one that would be a lot of red flags for a lot of people, but I enjoy is me and her pick at each other constantly about things. And I enjoy it because that's what the type of people I grew up with you.
Right,
I grew up
right,
with Trevor. I grew up with
right.
my
And,
friends. That's all we do
and
with each
that's what you
other.
do with friends, and friends know you can do this because you don't mean anything harmful. You love them, they love you, you're going to be with them ride or
Hmm.
die, so there's no harm meant. You're just saying goofy stuff and stuff that if it was a stranger would upset you, but you're
Right.
not, but you're just, what do they call it? Breaking balls. That's
Hmm.
all you're doing. And
Right.
you've seen Kim Nita and I do the same thing.
Sure. And
Yeah.
to
In
get to
fact,
bring
you
up that
you
is
said
I've
you were brutal. You're like, man, y'all are brutal. So
yeah, y'all are
yeah,
more than us. But
yeah.
what reminded me of that is I've forgotten my wallet when I said I was going to pay, which I felt really bad about.
Right. And I've done that too. I
Yeah,
legitimately forgot
and,
my
that make it
wallet.
up. That made up for it later. I paid for
Sure.
things later on.
Right,
But
right.
she'll just every time now when I ask if she wants to go somewhere and I say I'm paying, like you brought your wallet, she'll do that every time. You brought your wallet, right?
Yeah, and that's funny. Well, it's funny,
Yeah.
because you'd be like, yeah, no, well, wait a minute, and things happen, but that's different, and that's when you're firmly in a relationship. You
Mhm.
care for each other, and you're aware of each other's faults, and you bag on each other a little bit, and it doesn't hurt their feelings because they love you because of those faults, not in spite of those faults. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's part of the whole deal, but that's a whole different issue. But really, that was her main thing, was job responsibility and responsibility in general. I brought it up first, but the job thing was a big issue. And the funny thing was, and I asked her, I said, is that a real problem? She goes, I couldn't tell you. And she's had the same job since she got out of college. Same type of job, not at the same place, but same type of job. So she's very responsible, well known in the industry, and has been for decades. Everybody knows her. She can easily get a job anywhere, and has held the job for as long as she wants one. She just can go from place to place. But she's doing the exact same thing. And for whatever reason, she says men holding a job is very difficult. I said, "You're talking middle class, upper middle class level?" She goes, "Yes. I can't tell you how many of them bounce around." I said, "That is strange to me."
That's weird to me too. I've never heard that.
Me,
But
me either. But apparently, she knows
she would have a lot more
some of
communication
her
with those.
girlfriends. Some of she's had issue with boyfriends in the past, and some of her girlfriends that are married, their husbands, some of them can't seem to hold a job, and they talk about it incessantly, and it creates hardship for everybody if you're counting on an income
Yeah.
and they don't have it. There's only one, and there's supposed to be two because there's a certain lifestyle you've created with mortgage,
Yeah, you have a certain
car
yeah.
notes, kids, and
Yeah.
all those things that come with those choices and payments.
Yeah,
So
it's
yeah,
it's
I
a
was
hard step down to take away a lot of those things. It's a lot of moving around.
right. It compounds itself with problems, and it only gets worse. But she said that was a real issue, and that was the biggest one.
Hmm. Okay. So we're going to talk about our on our next podcast.
Next podcast, we'll talk about breakups. We'll talk about what happens when you drop the black flag and want to break up. Not just dating, but any relationship. Could be job related, could be friend related, could be romantic related. And romantic, it could be early stage, middle stage, late stage, engaged, but you didn't got to cut them loose, married, divorced, whatever. Just breakups with relationships and reactions, and what we both see, what we've gone through, and things like that. So that's going to be our next podcast. Thank you for listening to this podcast about red flags and dating. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk to you later. I'm
Peace.
Boomerx.
This is Millennial Z.
Take care.